Thanks, Carly. So, I don't know how this loud this microphone is. How is it? There we go. So, how's that, Krista? Can you hear me at the back there? Awesome. Thank you. So, why are museums and other public attractions partnering with interactive digital media producers to create cutting-edge experiences? Well, you have to excuse me, my glasses are not great. For the last couple of decades, museums and public spaces have strived to be known, not just for the value of their collections or as destinations. They have focused on developing reputations as places that people want to visit because of the way they are treated, the enjoyable experiences awaiting them, and the staff that make them feel welcome and wanted. Museums have adopted the business approach of developing a customer mindset. They take steps to ensure that from the moment a visitor sets foot into their institutions and until they leave, everything goes off without a hitch. Museums know their audiences well and segment them into cohorts, for which they develop an offer adapted to each of the target groups. They use what they learn to strengthen exhibitions and programs, formulate marketing and outreach strategies, and improve services. This has meant institutions have carried out major capital improvement projects motivated by more than the need to add more space, but by a desire to improve services for visitors and enhance the quality of their experience. Recent reports from the National Endowment for Arts and the Association of Art Museum Directors indicate that the attendance to museums, art museums in particular, continues to decline, at least in the United States, both in terms of attendance, share, and size. This in part is due to the lingering effects of the economic downturn, but also and especially to the changing demographics. While older Americans continue to visit, the drop is coming mostly from the younger, well-educated, but less committed millennial generation and potentially their offspring. In contrast, here in Canada, Parks Canada reported last year that statistical studies indicate that museum attendance levels have been climbing in the last few years. The growing interest in museums and strong cultural competition are creating pressures, encouraging museums to improve the visitor experience, or at least to define it. For them, this means responding adequately to public expectations and anticipating them at every level. Museums have tended to become increasingly open to the various communities that see museums as an instrument of their social commitment and expression. Bringing in new technologies has become indispensable for most museums and attractions in reaching young people. For screenagers, young people under 35, reality is entirely associated with screen culture, to the point that they seek to have all of their senses engaged at a museum. In addition, their culture is more oriented to sound, visuals, and actions than to words or letters. Some museum specialists say that visiting a museum based on simply observing objects accompanied by texts is going to disappear. Visitors will expect interactivity and expression, and institutions will have to respond to this. The social experience formed by a museum must satisfy the expectations of these young people without excluding other audiences, and must adapt to emerging social and cultural practices. When INDE begins its experience engineering process, we begin by looking at the client's objectives. Starting at a macro level, we determine what the big picture is and what's the driving force behind the end user experience. Is it a PR campaign, a permanent attraction, a multiple location? We identify the venue. Is it indoor or outdoor? If there is an inclination towards a certain theme, then we look at photo and video references, or we use our past project portfolio as examples to provide points of reference for the development of the user experience. To evolve the concept development, we go further into the project objectives. Will the experience inform, entertain, sell, represent, or brand a product? What is the client's brand, market positioning, and identity? Who is the target audience? Will the experience be open to the public? Will it be in a mall, a theme park, a museum, or a trade show? Is the experience free? Is it part of the general admission? Or is it a separate or premium ticket experience? These are critical factors because with each set of circumstances, there is a psychology behind the different demographics who may have access to the AR experience. It is important to know the best way to appeal to them and what kind of triggers they are more likely to respond to. It's also extremely useful to know what competing companies or alternate solutions the client has considered. Understanding how our experiences are similar enables us to establish an identifiable difference between the experience delivered and others in the marketplace. You're all familiar with Toronto Zoo, I'm sure. What you may not have seen was last year the Wild Connections augmented reality exhibit, which was near the Panda Experience Centre. As you know, Toronto Zoo is Canada's premier zoo. It's a leader in conservation, scientific research, and innovative educational programs. It has over 5,000 animals representing around 500 species, and it's seen by 1.3 million visitors annually. One of the zoo's core values is innovation. They encourage creativity, strive to think differently, and turn ideas into action. The zoo's objective was to highlight the critical work they do to ensure the ongoing survival of many of the world's most vulnerable and endangered species. In the words of John Tracona, the Toronto Zoo CEO, by showing animals in augmented reality experience, it complements our existing programs and demonstrates how we must take actions today to ensure these species exist in real life for future generations. The Air, Land and Sea experience was brought to life with the National Geographic spectacular photography displayed in cinematic quality photoreal 3D. A dynamic watering hole served as the centerpiece for the Air, Land and Sea exhibit, allowing visitors to get up close and personal with a diverse range of animals from Africa to the Arctic as they graze, drink, and interact with the environment around them. Wild Connections was located next to the Panda Interpretive Center in the Giant Panda Experience and was relinquished with the arrival of the baby pandas, so unfortunately it's no longer running today. The system featured the INDE SnapShare module that allowed anyone who was viewed the experience to immediately share their picture and video snapshots through social media channels. The Government of Ontario provided funding support for the exhibit, along with the TD Friends of the Environment Foundation, who contributed to the acquisition of the National Geographic images. The experience provided an additional revenue stream for the zoo and carried a supplemental admission charge of $4.42 per person ages 3 and up. Here's a short video of the experience. The INDE giant screen augmented reality experience that you saw there was also installed at the Montreal Biodome this summer. A key feature of the summer program at the Space for Life, it was open to visitors until just earlier this month on September the 5th. Space for Life brings together the city's 4 most prominent natural museums. the biodome, the insectarium, the botanical garden, and the Rio Tinto Alcan planetarium, and invites visitors to rethink the ties between human beings and nature. The objective was to entertain biodome visitors with a dynamic diversion while delivering them an important conservation message. The Polar Experience, installed on a large screen within an existing auditorium at the biodome, immersed users in the frozen wonders of nature, enabling them to observe and interact with the beautiful killer whale, the polar bear, penguins, and seals. T-Rex Revealed was a travelling exhibition themed around the National Geographic Channel's blockbuster documentary, Dino Autopsy. It drew 150,000 people on the opening day in Shanghai on October the 1st, 2015. A dinosaur exhibition with a difference: it's without skin, bone, or skeletons, and it used solely augmented reality technology to present the experience. The event combined the INDE mobile AR dino experience for smartphones and tablets, both Android and iOS, with Back to the Jurassic, a broadcast AR installation for large screens. Broadcast AR allowed the large groups of people to interact with true-scale dinosaurs, see themselves live on a huge LED wall, and even have their snapshots taken with the dinos. The mobile AR experience, curated in collaboration with the University of Hong Kong, shared scientific information on these fantastic creatures, including interesting corrections based on recent research. For example, they found that the T-Rex in that region of the world was more likely to be covered in feathers than reptilian scales. The notion that a life-sized 3D orca would stop thousands of shoppers in their tracks at the Alley shopping mall in Budapest, Hungary, became the core point for a Hungarian Kayak Canoe Association when they were contemplating how to utilize an existing water feature at the shopping mall as the centerpiece for a diverting experience for the shoppers. Animated water combined with a real water tank makes the experience more realistic and nearly impossible for the human brain to distinguish between the digital content from the real-world elements. If you look at one of the snapshots taken by the system without experiencing it live, it's a struggle to identify where the real meets 3D. Installed on a giant screen, the AR experience brought shoppers up close and personal to the killer whale, a curious walrus, while allowing participants to play with the dolphin and tease a penguin.